everyone. It's Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I'm going to interview Bill Biggs. I'm going to just let Bill tell you about himself. So go ahead, Bill.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That was the quickest intro ever. So a little bit about me is that I've spent most of my life trying to get on Chris, Chris Mullins podcast, Lawyer Tell All podcast, because it is the most exclusive club there is in the PI world. And so I've made it and I'm here and it's all cake from here. So that's it. That's me.
That's it.
What?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Well, yeah, a little bit more.
you want a little bit more.
A little bit
Okay.
more of it.
I mean, you can, it's a long and winding road, so you can clarify with any questions you want. But
Sure,
15
yeah.
years, 15 years in the industry as a COO, executive director. I was a CEO at one firm where they allow it. In certain states, they allow a non-lawyer to be a CEO. Some they don't. Um,
Mhm.
but what I learned early on, I obviously did not come from the legal background, but what I learned early on was that I loved what this industry is all about, PI law. I loved how it protected clients, advocated for clients, um, and I loved that we fought bullies, David and Goliath. Images come to mind, and because by nature, I think part of who I am, the way I'm wired, I'm a coach. I love to see people become the best version of themselves. I love the opportunity to be a part of that. And then I love to put a group of those people together and form a team and win. Highly competitive, so it's that odd mix of um, you know, I, I really enjoy people. I love people. And yet I'm also really competitive. And so that really is the wiring of a coach. So it took me 40 plus years to figure out what I was, and what I wanted to do with my life. And finally, I realized I'm a coach at heart. And so I just happen to coach in an industry, feel very blessed, very fortunate to coach in an industry that I can deeply believe in because of what we do. And so it's been extremely good to me. Uh,
Mhm.
and I've gotten to, stand on a lot of stages and work in a lot of firms and work deeply in a handful of firms.
Mhm.
And I'm not slowing down anytime soon because there's all kinds of opportunity right now in this industry and it's changing. I feel fortunate to be alive at this time in history.
That's wonderful. Okay, so how did this whole thing start for you? How did you get into legal and all of that? How'd
Yeah.
that What
Yeah,
happened?
it was crazy. I'd been a pastor for 10 years. And, the joke I tell all the time that's way overdone was, they kicked me out because I cuss too much and I really like a gin and tonic or two every now and then. So, um, being, all of that's a joke. No, I just decided after 10 years of being in pastoral ministry that I wanted to live my life in business and do something in the business world and, take the same values that I had in life and bring them into the business world. So uh, I started a media business and it had a few different angles to it. At the time, back in those days, you could still do print media. So I owned a couple of magazines, a little
Okay.
community newspaper. I did public speaking training, coached public speaking for athletes and influential professional athletes and college athletes. And so that's a whole other road. I've written a Heisman Trophy acceptance speech. I'm working on a Hall of Fame induction speech for a client in August. So I still do just a little bit of a dab of that. But I owned this media company with a good friend of mine. It was the first business I ever owned and it was going great. And out of the blue, a guy comes to me that I knew. We had been actually in a book study together. And long story short, he asked me if I wanted to be a director of operations in a law firm, and I never knew nothing about the law. And was not looking for a job. Had this business, and but I was curious because it was growing and it was coaching. Right, it was a team. There was
Right.
this element of Whereas the media business that I was in, it was never going to be, 50, 100, 150 people. It was just going to be me and a handful at most people. So long story short, I, after a lot of conversations, I joined that team and as the director of ops, and then was soon thereafter made the COO. And that law firm,
Mhm.
we went from about 2 million to around 25, 30 million in about 8 years, and 7 or 8 years. And there was no big cases that made that happen. It was just, it was rapid, but it was steady, consistent, methodical growth. What a guy who a lot of people in this industry may remember, a guy named Arnie Malham. He founded CJ
Yeah.
Advertising.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Um, we were a CJ client, and he used to talk about a 20-mile march. And basically, it's like consistency, consistency, consistency.
Mm.
And we grew consistently over those years. And I like to say, the piece that I had to do with that was that I just surrounded myself with really good people. I hired really good people,
Mhm.
and was very intentional about that. And the first 10 years of the firm, they'd gotten to about 2 million, and the next 7 they got to 25, on the cusp of 30. And so during that time, um, we had moved to Litify, and uh, there was a lot of changes happening in the industry, not as much as now, but I had the opportunity to talk on a few stages about how we had built the firm and what culture meant.
Mm.
And so none of that was planned, right? I never intended for any of that to happen. I intended for us to be successful, and I was strategic about all the moves, but I never thought that I would end up being on stages talking about building teams with culture, and
Mhm.
what culture meant. And I have to thank, in large part, the folks at Litify at the time, the original founders of Litify, because they came to me with this idea of a podcast, transforming the culture of law. That was the name of the podcast. You can still find it out there on the web. Transforming the culture of law. And they asked me to speak at a LitiQuest, one of the first LitiQuests at the TWA Center in New York. And they said, people have heard you talk about culture. You're kind of seen as the culture guy, but lawyers care about money. So you need to figure out how to talk about culture in the context and how it can make them more money. And I said, well, that's true. That's very true. So I spent several months researching the concept of culture. Like, what does this mean? Eh,
Mhm.
People talking about it a lot, but it's this ambiguous, cloudy. Everybody thinks they know what it means. Nobody can
Mhm.
define it. And so I said, if I'm going to speak to, this big event with a lot of, people that are very well known in the industry, I want to have this thing down. I want to and it was such a great journey for me, because all this stuff that I was doing and that I believed in, I kind of did it naturally. I was just kind of operating out of what I naturally do,
Mhm.
but I'd never deeply defined it. And being asked to give that talk made me, or it pushed me, and I decided to, I'm going to define this. I'm going to define what culture means. Then I'm going to figure out if we can measure it, and how you establish it in a group of people in a firm. And it went off really well. That talk went off really well. And
Mm.
uh, after that talk, a gentleman, got up on stage, and he, stood there, and he said, "I don't know who that guy from Texas is, but you need to listen to what he has to say." And that man who said that was John Morgan. And
Mhm.
after that, things blew up. I mean,
Right.
right? And he probably has no idea who I am, and forgot that talk a long time ago. But that had an impact on my career, and um,
Yeah.
took off into all kinds of things from there, and more to come.
Yeah. More to come. Okay. So now I have a question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about how being a pastor guided you to the desire to understand culture and being a coach.
Yeah. So I really, they're pastor and coach are really, for me, almost synonymous, right? In the sense that a pastor, that term has kind of shepherding motifs to it, and the idea is that you are caring about the people who've been entrusted to you, and you're also caring about the whole flock, the whole group, right? So if and in whatever, if for anybody who's from a faith background, whether you have a pastor or a rabbi or a imam or whatever right, the idea is that this person is one to help nurture people, to grow them, to lead them, and to help them
Mhm.
become, there's a strategy and a goal, that you're going to become this type of person, or you're going to accomplish these things. Well, those same principles, if you step back from the faith element, right, the principles are the exact same thing as what a good, in my opinion, what a good coach does, what a good business leader does. And so I I I truly believe, like, the same skills, gifts, practices, the same things that I did then, in that context, is what I do now. Now, the one difference is, you don't fire people too often in a faith-based context. Maybe you should, probably be better. But but the skills and the heart behind it, there's so much parallel. It's very analogous. So I I use it every day. It's the same stuff. It's me.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So, let's talk about intake culture.
Out.
Go ahead and
Yeah.
tell me what your thoughts are about intake culture.
Yeah. So first, I love that you asked that question. I'm going to say real quick, just a very quick definition of culture, just across the board, or the
Mhm,
way I've looked at it, right? It is a manifestation of the values of a group of people, and typically led by that leader, right? That leader's values, when they manifest into a group of people, what that person believes and how these people are going to interact. That's what culture ends up being. And I believe that, especially in a corporate setting, that it is measurable by three things that I would look at: um, how much we believe in each other, how much we believe in a client, and how much we believe in the purpose or the why of what we're doing. And I call it saturation of belief. But basically, if you really, let's say, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're a 9, you believe that clients deserve great representation and that people are being really mistreated by insurance companies. That's strong, right? That's a strong belief in purpose. If you
mhm,
don't believe that strongly, you're going to have a weak culture if you're in this context,
mhm,
in this industry. So now we
mhm,
take those concepts, right? The core values of a leader, those three elements: how you function, what you believe about your team, what you believe about your clients, what you believe about the purpose. You put that into an intake, or what I like to call new client team, or new
mhm,
client department. That is, you take those three things and you just add to it this idea that we deeply believe, right, that we are the best option for these clients. We have an opportunity to take a terrible moment in a person's life and
mhm,
be the source, whether it's the individual or us as a team, and all the technologies and all the things we use, all the resources available to us. We have the opportunity to be the entry point for that person to get the help they need. And so, right, an intake culture would have that same compassion and belief in the client, same strong. I mean, the intake team
mhm,
has to have such a deep belief in purpose, right?
mhm,
Because they're really sales in large part. Some people would equate it to
mhm,
that, right?
mhm,
So you got to believe in your product. You got to believe in what you're selling. And selling's not a bad word, right? It's a great word. It's a great idea. It's a great concept. You got to believe in it. The best people, the best salesmen are gifted in what they do, but they also believe in what they do. So there's that purpose element. And then a unified sense of team. We're in this together. You've got a lead and you're not here tomorrow. So I'm going to chase that lead. And it's not about my glory over yours. We're going to get that client in the door. Um, that team component is, across the board, always critical. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think intake is a beautiful and very concentrated microcosm of the
Mm-hmm.
values of a law firm and what that culture should be. Deep
Mm-hmm.
purpose, deep sense of care for
Yeah.
the client, and real strong teamwork.
Yeah. I love that. So let me ask you this. If the law firm as a whole doesn't see intake that way yet, is it possible for intake to have the type of culture within intake that you just described?
Well, not as likely, probably unlikely. And I think this is across the board. Sometimes great culture happens on accident, but very rarely. And
Mhm.
if it does, it's because there was an individual who pushed it. It's almost always person driven, individual driven, right? So if the law firm just happened to hire, someone who was passionate about what they, if a law firm that didn't really have strong values about intake got lucky and hired somebody who did, then they may end up with a great culture in their intake. But those accidents don't happen very often. The
Yeah,
opposite happens more often, right?
right. Are you still at the firm, the law firm?
Oh,
Are
well,
you?
I'm still in a firm. I'm the executive director of Garces, Grabler LeBrocq, and
Oh, okay.
we're the largest, if not probably top two or three PI firm in New Jersey. The original firm was Daniel Stark in Texas,
Oh,
but
okay. Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as like I say, with the talk with Litify and or at LitiQuest, and as I had already been asked to do a lot of consulting, and I was speaking a lot, and um, the momentum was headed in such a direction that I ended up doing. I almost did consulting full time, but as soon as I went to do that,
Yeah.
before I knew it, I I I had firms that were saying, that were making me, offers you can't refuse. They were
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
come join please come join our firm. And I didn't that during that time, I was shocked by, you know, firms were really looking for solutions, and they wanted the idea of a COO, especially a non-lawyer COO that knew the industry and knew how to run a law firm and scale it and grow it. Um,
Mhm.
there just weren't that many.
Mm.
And so it was a good time to be in that position. It still is. If
Yeah.
anybody's looking
Okay.
for a job, if anybody's looking for a job, law firm
It's an
COO,
amazing time. Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
an exciting.
there's and
It's an,
marketing. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not going away anytime soon.
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm from the newspaper business. I've been in legal for 30 years, but prior to that it was newspapers. And
I love it.
yeah, I remember the discussion about newspapers going away. So I remember that.
That
I remember
that's
that.
part of why I ended up, you know, we sold that business and moved more towards the public speaking side, obviously because I've been a pastor, so I've been on stages
Right.
a lot. But
Yeah.
but part of the reason that I was even open to change, because I was super happy doing that work, was the opportunity to coach. But also I thought, oh, this paper stuff, it ain't gonna be around for very much longer.
Mhm. Right, exactly. Okay, so AI. What are your thoughts on AI with law firms? AI and law firms.
Yeah, I think, like anything else, it is a tool. It is
Mhm.
not inherently bad or good.
Mhm.
Um, and if I had to say inherently, if I was going to lean one direction or another, I would say inherently good. But uh, you know, number one, I think it's inevitable. It's here.
Mhm.
Um, you need to learn as much as possible. Every person, I think if there's any word for this season of the
Yeah.
industry, it's be a learner.
Mhm.
Be be somebody who is prepared to go back and learn. If you kind of set it to the side, now the
Mm.
time to pick up your student
Yeah.
cap again, because you need to be learning constantly. I think that's just good for life in general, but you
Yeah.
need to learn. And um, look, here's a reality about AI and intake in law firms that I think people are maybe afraid to talk to, are afraid to talk about. AI is going to take jobs. Like that, it is. Like let's don't dance around this idea. It is going to do that, but
Mm.
that's why you need to learn. That's why you, and I'm not saying it's going to take a ton of jobs. It's going to
No.
create
Yeah.
jobs as well. There's all, and it's taking more jobs than I find ironic, taking more computer coding. Coders are the ones that are at risk, but it is a reality of the modern law firm. Now, to what
Mhm.
degree? And and there's that's the nuance. How quickly we adopt things, what
Mhm.
things do we adopt? Specifically with intake, I mean, 6 months ago, it was all the rage that everybody's going to have AI agents doing intake, and now I see a large pullback from that, actually, right? And people are almost more inclined to let an AI voice agent do a treatment call than they are to do an intake, which
Mhm.
I tend to agree right now,
Yeah.
because once they're in the boat, then you can
Yeah.
talk to them about, you're going to have this AI agent call you and
Right.
ask,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a different conversation than
Yeah.
they
Mhm.
call you for the very first time they're in need, and they don't
Mhm.
like this idea that they're talking to an AI agent. So I can understand, why has been, there was a rush and now there's a pullback. This is common. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a technology adoption. There's a science of technology adoption, and how it happens in culture. And but it is inevitable. I think it's just a matter
Yeah.
of pace. Um, I think I think the healthiest firms are going to not only be adopting AI more and more and more, but they're going to start thinking about what is our protocol, what is our decision making
Yeah.
process for what we adopt, because you could end up playing a game of leapfrog.
Mhm.
I used the term the other day, technology and AI fatigue,
Mhm.
which is just another form of change fatigue, which I've been guilty of. I've been guilty of pushing teams into fatigue, because wanting to change quickly.
Mhm.
So I think I'm starting to think more and more strategically about these things and how AI plays into that. But those are all questions that are all focused on, well, they're all presupposing that
Yeah.
it's inevitable. And it is inevitable. It's already here. It's going to continue. And it is a tool that can be used for a lot of good.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And I think the most important question to ask yourselves is law firms is why. Before you go and flip a switch, why do you want it? What's the intent? Why do you really want it? You got to sell yourself on the why before just flipping that switch and then disrupting your clients and your prospective clients
Yeah.
and everything else. And I think AI is better served for intake for training right now. For um, nobody can ever seem to build an intake team that has call monitoring and scoring and reviewing and feedbacks and critiquing. You end up doing too much operations and administrative in intake, so that never gets done. So let's just have AI teach intake while they're on a call.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I'm sure you're probably way ahead of me on all this, but I'm loving some of the things I'm seeing where AI is assisting the new client team member to be able to see, all right, so ask about this. Oh, notice they said this. It's also helping, it's populating fields, it's transcribing it, it's bringing up. I was just on a call with some of our Fireproof Mastermind um, owners and executives in one of our groups. In fact, our highest revenue group that we call Legends, and we were talking about AI screening for in intake TBI, potential TBI things that maybe the so it is. it is a support mechanism, right?
Yes.
And like you said, a training mechanism
Yeah.
and a feedback loop, right? You can take now um, those transcripts and those calls, and you can now use what AI is producing and spitting out, and then go back to the intake associate, the new client team member, and say, hey, see,
Yeah.
look, here's some things that we could have done better. And yeah, so um,
Mhm.
it's amazing. There's no doubt it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think in addition to that, for the training part, I think also integrate support intake, like positive messages, um, helping them with their mental health, while they're on the phone with a fatality, things like
Yeah,
that. Positive support for them,
I
not
love that. Yeah.
training. Yeah. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So
And the last thing I'd say on that, and one of the things I just think AI is already doing, and also the data that it's providing, right,
Mhm.
to quicken those feedback loops to help us. They used to say, great technology helps you make better decisions faster,
Mm.
and I think AI is definitely doing that, and for sure at the intake level.
Yeah, 100%. Why don't you tell everybody about Fireproof Masterminds before we say so long?
Yeah. So thank you for that opportunity. Mastermind's been around in the industry for a long time. But what we did when I met John and then Mike, and we started talking about this idea of doing masterminds. I had been, because I was multi-tribal during my time, first 10 years in the industry. But I wasn't aligned with any one tribe. I was in all of them, speaking at
Mm.
all the different conferences and all that, and in lots of different masterminds as a consultant and as a COO. And so seeing all of the different versions of what a mastermind could look like, um, when we started thinking about what if we were to put together, a group that was we try to make the best one that's ever been done, data driven, right? Um, Small groups, 8 to 12 firms
Mhm.
in a room, high data emphasis. We require in Fireproof Masterminds, we require financials. We require a set of KPIs that the firms turn in. We meet twice a year, and
Mhm.
we our groups are only 8 to 12 firms, and then they are grouped by revenue and by market. And
Mhm.
every firm that's in a group, once the group is started, every firm that's in there has veto power. So every firm that comes in has to apply, and if you're already in, you can veto it. The reason is for trust, because you're talking about your financials. You're talking about, and during our meetings, we use our KPIs and that financial um, uh, uh, roadmap, right? We're using that data as the agenda. And so
Mm.
it's what
Right.
I like to say is it is an audit.
Mhm.
Imagine being in a or being in a room with firms just like you, except from across the country, similar size, same questions, same problems, same hunger, same desire, seeing their data. There's no conjecture. There's no peacocking. There's no guessing, because the data is saying, man, this firm is really good at this. Let's hear what they have to say. This firm is really not so great at this. They need to learn from this one over here. You go through that for 2 days, and it's rocket fuel. Very few bad ideas. I like to say your hit rate is 80 to 90%, because it's not guessing. It's
Right.
We've done it. We failed at this, doing it 3 times this way. Now we did it this way and it worked. And now you're sharing that with a firm that doesn't have to do it 3 times and fail.
Yeah.
Right? It's a best practice. It is a fertile ground for best practices
Mhm.
and community. So it's an audit, yet it's an audit with encouragement and great advice and tried and true results. And I don't think there's anything that can beat it for firm growth. The
Mhm.
firms that are in these matters, we've grown to almost 100. We'll hit 100 firms this summer. So I believe it's the largest mastermind program in the country in PI law,
Mhm.
and it's transforming firms, and they're moving up these revenue brackets. They're not staying where they are, which is a great sign. There's
Yeah. So you have to keep creating brackets.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
we have them from 120 million plus in revenue to 2 million. But that's why we
Mhm.
have the brackets, right? That's why we have the
Right.
groups, because different problems. But
Right.
it's a blast. It's a blast. It's a blast. I love it. I love seeing these firms grow, and I love seeing them help one another. Powerful community.
Yeah, I love masterminds. You have a chance to be in a mastermind, do it.
Yeah,
You'll never
do it.
look back. You'll never look back. Well, any last words for everybody, Bill?
Oh, wow. Enjoy this moment in the history of the industry. We're all fortunate to be here right now at this time in the history of this industry. So much opportunity, such such an environment, and there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of good for a lot of people right now, and maybe more so than ever before. So yeah, be thankful. Be thankful that you're here right now, that you're a part of what's going on right now, because it hasn't always been this amazing, but it sure is amazing right now.
Exactly. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, upward and onward. So long. Lawyers tell all. We'll see you again. Bye bye.